Virginia, where Mr. Good is standing by for his 5 minutes, and he is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Bean, and thank you to our witnesses. I think I'm the only thing standing between you and being paroled from this hearing today, but thanks for your time today. First, just a question or two to Ms. Allen. Appreciate, again, you being with us today. Our backgrounds are somewhat similar, where I grew up in a lower-income family, grew up on food stamps, free school lunch, and I'm old enough, it was the days when not everyone had free school lunch. You had to qualify for it, and went to rough inner-city schools. Low-income white kids, low-income minority kids, rough background, rough schools. But through the benevolence of others, my family could never afford it. I was able to go to a private Christian school for high school, which made a tremendous impact on my life, similar to what I've seen in your testimony on the impact that it made for you. As you know, Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was created to help, theoretically anyway, disadvantaged students. In a community like where you grew up, in Eastside Jacksonville, how would you comment on the effectiveness of the federal funds being, what kind of an impact are they being made, are they effectively being leveraged, I should say, to help disadvantaged students in your experience?
Of course. Every school that I went to in elementary school was a Title I school and did not meet my needs. The schools are currently still Title I and currently still poor performing and lower income. With my work at the American Federation for Children, I started a special project called Black Minds Matter. And I actually have the first and the only directory of Black school founders. And these are folks who started schools. And many of these Black school founders used to be public school teachers in Title I schools. And what's interesting is that they reached a ceiling and they saw that they couldn't help. They couldn't do as much as they wanted to really help kids learn. So they started to start their own school. Many of the colleagues and members were talking about teachers in the public schools and in the system. Teachers who are teaching in private and charter schools are doing a tremendous job at trying to help give students more opportunity. And so they're also benefiting from what we're talking about today.
You know, certainly you see the other side, what they, we talk about school choice a lot on our side, if you will, and I hate to say sides like that. The other side is very much against school choice and will say, that school choice harms the public schools. Their feeling is if a public school is toxic, if it's failing, if it's dangerous, if it's not meeting the needs of the children or the families that are subjected to those schools, then everyone should have to share in that misery and no one should have the opportunity for school choice. I have a bill that's called the Choice Act, which would allow federal dollars allocated for education to follow the child to the school choice of the family, whether it was another public school. Some districts charge you to go outside your district, of course, a few $1,000s in Virginia in some cases, whether it's the private or Christian school or homeschool expenses or what have you. How might it have made a difference, or would it, for people like others in your situation, or yourself maybe, if federal dollars went to the school choice of the family instead of being restricted to that public school where the child happens to reside?
It would make a tremendous difference. Folks who have backgrounds similar to ours are wanting better options for their students. There's a very sad story of a mom from Ohio who tried to pick a different public school for her daughter and ended up in jail because she was violating the law by sending her kid to a school outside of her district assigned zip code. And that's not a free, equitable system. We need one, though.
Yeah, and sadly, unfortunately, there is not a correlation that we can demonstrate in terms of achievement or excellence in education and the dollars allocated per school district. Some of the areas across the country where we spend the most money in the public school system or government school systems, we get the worst outcomes in those systems. This for Dr. Burke, and again, thank you for being with us, and with the limited time that I have left, could you just comment on how you feel like the effectiveness is demonstrated by the federal government's role in education? What's the proper role of that education, and what's the demonstrated effectiveness for the mandates and the controls that come with the federal government's small amount of dollars that are allocated?
Well, education's not an enumerated power of the federal government, so the more that we can do to start winding down federal intervention in K-12 education, the better. The track record has been incredibly poor, unfortunately, since Lyndon Johnson launched his war on poverty. We've spent $2 trillion just at the federal level alone, which remember is just 8.5% of all K-12 education funding. And outcomes, if you look at the NAEP long-term trend assessment, are flat for reading and math achievement over time. We're still in the middle of the pack internationally. Disadvantaged students are still struggling with graduation rates, et cetera. So we've got to change that dynamic, start winding down federal spending and intervention in K-12 education, and allow education choice to flourish in the states.
Thank you. In Virginia, 94% of our funding for the schools comes from state and local, and I would submit that the 6% we get from the feds is not worth it. We can make do on the 94% without the federal mandates and the negatives that come with it. Thank you so much. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.